Hello there, Sarah from 17 once again. This is my Last of Us Grounded difficulty video walkthrough. This is Chapter 3, Bill's Town, and if you're new to this walkthrough, it is a minimalist guide through the game where I show you each of the combat situations, each of the stealth moments, pretty much all the encounters, and I trim out everything in between. At the beginning of this level there's two clickers which you can completely ignore should you choose to. But if you enjoy using bricks like I do, you can smash their face in. And that is what I'm going to be showing you in this beginning part of Bill's Town. Something to be aware of. If they are onto you, and the easiest way to tell that a clicker is onto you is it does this little roar animation and then it starts doing its crazy jazz hands charge attack, which if you go anywhere near it during the charge attack, it's an execution of you. As long as you hit it before it does that moment, you should be fine. But moving on, this is the second combat encounter on the level, and I'm about to waste 2 arrows. I do not recommend this. Instead, carry a bottle with you to this area and kill it with a bottle. That way you'll save your arrows and you'll be able to get past it with ease. However, I was being kind of just happy-go-lucky for most of this walkthrough, and it ended up biting me in the arse in a few places, but the cool thing is, I don't think there's any area of this entire game on Grounded where you need something really specific. Every single part that I personally think that is the case, I'm going to tell you before it so that you don't make the mistakes I made or what I learned. This sequence here, the enemies take 2 bullets to go down. If you get caught reloading, you're in trouble because if they grab you, it's over. The second phase of this has Ellie being in trouble, and I'm not sure if you can shoot Ellie, but I wouldn't recommend it, so just focus on shooting the infected. And the only problem with this is, when you fail it, the checkpoint is as you trip the trap, so you have to wait for all the exposition to finish before the sequence continues, and I ended up messing this up twice, which was literally getting caught with my pants down while I was reloading, which, you know, it speaks for itself. But the cool part here is you get unlimited ammo, so you don't have to worry about, you know, making every shot count as long as you're not in a position of danger and Ellie's not getting absolutely gangbanged. But just keep on taking them down. Pretty simple stuff, and then eventually Bill's gonna come save you. So this is the hardest level so far, I think. The first 2 were really simple. You know, there were a couple of checkpoint issues I had with them, but aside from those, not much of a difference from Survivor. The section coming up is a lot different because the AI is kind of strange on this difficulty. There are times when it's what I remember it being like on Survivor, and then there are other times when it feels much worse. But as soon as you gain control, you want to start running because you are being chased by infected. What I do is I kind of ignore my team because I know exactly where I'm going, and I put a brick on here because as Bill starts to open this door, the infected get really close to you, and sometimes you don't have enough time to get in the door. So I throw a brick at the first dude, and it generally allows him to stagger a little bit so I can get in this room. So brick him, get in the room, and be aware you're going to trigger a clicker right here. Do not run into him or it's instant death. Kite him around this little room, then run back to where he came from. And then as soon as you mantle up onto this truck, you're safe, you're pretty much home free. Because as soon as you enter this pub, it ends the sequence and it gets to the next part. So you don't have to waste any ammo there. This right here is probably one of the biggest fights you're going to be doing directly before you get to the school. There's a lot of enemies here, and it's one of those moments where because Bill has a shotgun, he can be really useful. But because the game doesn't want the AI on your side to be all powerful and make the experience cheaper or easier, it makes it so that he doesn't do half the amount of damage your bullets do, and it also makes it so that he can miss shots he really shouldn't miss. And it makes perfect sense. It's a conceit they have to do to keep the challenge there, but at the same time it would have been nicer if perhaps he didn't shoot as frequently, and when he did some serious damage. I'm not too sure how you handle it, because on one point you're ruining the challenge, and the whole point of harder difficulties is to get that challenge. On the other hand, you're frustrating the player because they're sat waiting for Bill to kill a zombie and he's kind of stood there chilling out, hitting it with a machete, and it's not doing anything. But I mentioned earlier in this walkthrough that I was going to try my best not to shoot my guns, and whenever you see me shoot my guns, it was either if the situation was giving me some grief, or if I just could not find a way to do it without doing so. So you're going to see me do this a lot. I'm going to be kiting enemies, finding things to throw at them, and beating them down melee style. I will apologise in advance if it's not what you've come here to watch, but that's the way I wanted to play, and I had a lot of fun doing it. And it's also better for keeping your ammo, even though there's going to be moments where I do some really silly ammo management, especially with Molotovs. I waste Molotovs in this playthrough like a fool, but those were the ones that worked when I wasted equipment, so those were the ones that kept. And I do think it adds a human value to it. But I believe this is the last clicker who needs to be killed, so we'll take him out. Also, something worth noting when I say, you know, if I start using guns, it's because I couldn't find an ulterior motive. There are many ways to handle a lot of situations. Some of them, however, are so RNG heavy that I don't find them as much fun as I would normally. Like, I like patterns. I like finding a path that works. I like finding a pattern that works and executing it. I like the skill to be on the execution part, not so much on my ability to react to what is different this time. And a couple of sequences in this game are so random. Like, you can play them 10 times and the AI will do something different 10 times. Other times they'll do the same thing. There's really no replicating the success of a previous run in some parts. And I'm going to try my best to tell you which parts those were for me. And they're usually the self-contained shootouts against humans. They're the ones where it just comes totally random where they are, what they do, and how it goes down. And sometimes you can get really lucky, other times you don't. Oh, I tell a lie, this is the final clicker. So there we go, take him out, and then we can carry on.
Alright.
But a couple of parts of the game where you need something specific. In the sewers, once you escape Pittsburgh, to stealth through the stalker section, you will need one arrow. And you need to be lucky too, because if your arrow doesn't kill the clicker who's asleep, then you'll be fucked. But you need one arrow for that. Your alternative there is to shoot the clicker and shoot the ones behind you and hope the kid gets the ladder down quick enough for you, or you shoot everything. I wanted to stealth it, but I didn't have any arrows, and thus I ended up shooting everything, which really frustrated me, but it's just the way it is. There's just no way to melee the stalkers. It's stupid. There's this strange thing that this game does where, on the harder difficulties, even if you press attack first and you get what you perceive to be the jump on an enemy, they can still counter you. And there's nothing you can do. There's no, like, counter back button, there's no dodge button, there's no, you know, duck and weave button. It's just a combat system that at times is heavily biased against the player because they don't want you to be able to, you know, just Bruce Wayne your way through all these fights. They want it to be a struggle, they want you to respect the enemies, and it leads to hilarious moments where you think you should get the first hit and you don't. A fantastic example of this is in a fail video I uploaded the other day. It's the one at the Hydro Dam. The first one is me sneaking up to a part and then everybody suddenly knowing where I am and then they come and beat me up. But when I restart afterwards and I throw the smoke bomb, when I go up, I think I kill the first person, and then the second person, I think I kill him. And then the third person who I see who doesn't register me, I go to hit him with an axe and he just counters me and punches me. And it's one of those things where, like, 1 in 3 chances he wouldn't have countered me, but the other 2 he did. So it's just that weird moment of you can't trust and get any kind of consistency with the melee in this game unless you attack from behind. From behind is a guaranteed victory for you. From in front, you're asking for a coin toss, and it can be really frustrating. But this moment here is a stealth section, and I swear to God, the clickers, man, they do this weird thing where wherever you want to go, they will stand there. And it's it's so funny because, like, if you want to go to a corner, 10 to 1 of them's going to go to that corner. Like, if you want to go the real path, they just all congregate on the path. It's so strange how they do it, and it might just be me, you know, seeing 9/11 predictions in the Bible codes and all that kind of stuff, but at times it just feels like the AI is programmed to wander onto the way you want to go. And other times you can find a pretty simple path, like this one right now. This worked quite well. My only criticism here is there are doors on the game which require an NPC to open them, and there's no way of, you know, saying NPC move your ass, so sometimes they just take forever to do things. And any of the moments where you have to give people a leg up, there are certain sections of the game where you physically cannot skip past enemies and give the leg up until everyone is dead. And I wish they were different, but it's just a reality of the way the game works. And I'm going to tell you in those moments when you can't get past it, because there's no point even trying. And the moments where the player is penalised in that way are sections of the game that would be better if you were allowed that flexibility. But it's completely intentional, folks. It's the way the game was made to be. Also, I didn't have the volume on at this point, so I didn't hear Bill mention he was going to unlock the door. So as I was creeping away from the clicker, I noticed the door was open. But I'm going to make a mistake in this video. There's a few mistakes in this one. As you sneak through this next area of gardens, I believe there's a garage that has a ton of arrows in it. And I've not played this game for, well, since I covered the DLC, and I haven't played the main game since I covered the walkthrough, which is over a year ago now. So I'm rusty, but I'm not terrible, is the way I would probably describe it. I have a good understanding of the game, but I forgot a lot of the nuance of things like the loot and the collectibles. Because one thing I've noticed as I've been playing again is I believe the collectibles preset. I used to think that they were random, and I just think that they remove certain ones for certain difficulties and so forth. So a lot of the stuff is the same, like shiv locations, ones in cupboards and stuff. So I believe one of these garages will have a ton of arrows, but I was so eager to just get through this without causing any hassle that I never took the time to explore. I never took the risk. And that right there, what just happened. For some reason, when you take people down, there's this percentage of probability that it will count as a loud takedown, which is what happens when Joel steps on the face, like I did to that second infected a few minutes back. So I don't know if it's because I took him down and I was too close to him and he responded to me mid-animation. I'm not entirely too sure how that works. But that's the reason why that third infected ran after us, because he heard me do that heavy takedown on the dude. And there are a couple of enemies that seem to have mandatory loud takedowns, because there are certain sequences which the game wants you to go loud on. And I think it's over there. Do you see that garage to my right? I think the arrows are in there, but I completely forgot about them and I skipped them, and it's such a mistake. It would have saved me so much ammo, but there you go, folks. Learn from my mistakes and don't repeat them. Also, the very last enemy of a group of enemies, you'll generally do a loud takedown to kill them. It's one of the ways the game signifies that you're at the end of the wave.
Okay, Bill.
But Ellie goes through the cat flap. We're just patiently waiting now to proceed on. And then as we move into this area, there's a handful of clickers that are going to be in a passive state, which means that they're not walking around, they're not really activated. However, if you make a sound, you'll soon find just how quickly they activate. And I was thinking here that I could climb up onto the thatched like patio roof thing, whatever the hell this is, and get in a bedroom window, which would have been cool, but apparently you can't do that. But if you're playing on Survivor and above, actually this might be valid on hard, I'm not too sure how it works. I've been watching DSP play the remastered version on hard, and I'm surprised at just how easy that game is on hard. I was expecting it to be much more punishing for him, but he's doing a fantastic job, and anybody who's watched a Let's Play by DSP, you'll know that he often doesn't really do a great job. That's part of the charm of his channel, and he's doing really well for the most. But on those harder difficulties, you have to brush the analog to move. You cannot hold it while you're crouched, or the clickers will hear you. And I think it only takes effect on Survivor and subsequently now on Grounded. And it completely changes the dynamic of how these situations work, because you have to, lightly hold an analog. And I'm not the biggest fan of the PlayStation analogs. I never really have been. And that's coming from somebody who was a massive fan of the N64 analog. And if you've ever gone back to that thing, it feels just... In Alien right now, it feels like it's too long, like it's too stiff, it feels very, very strange. But I adored that controller back in the heydays of the N64, which I believe is one of the best consoles ever made, because it symbolises just a golden period, a halcyon day of awesomeness from my youth. But that analog is crazy. But the PlayStation ones, they have that looseness to them that makes them really responsive but really sensitive too. And if you're not used to playing on that pad, or if you've not had it for a while, it can kind of mess you up. And if you're a PlayStation guy and it's the console that you play all the third-party games on, you probably don't even know what I'm on about because you're so ingrained and used to it. But if you're like me and you go between a few different analogs, especially now I've got a Wii U, because that controller has completely different analogs. But I have to talk about this sequence, because as much as, the differences in pads and personal preferences, something we can all debate about, this is hard as shit, It's just... I love The Last of Us. I think it's a fantastic game, and I've come back to it now on Grounded difficulty because everybody's wanted me to do it. And I say everybody, but it was just a vocal, percentage of people who were like, please cover this, please do that. And I'm happy I have, but it reminds me of some of the things that I think this game does horribly. And that thing is the spawns. 99% of this game has perfect spawns. It has spawns you can learn, it has spawns you can exploit, it has spawns that make the game fun. That 1% of contradictory spawns is just hell. And this is one of those parts where the spawn is shitty. So you'll notice I'm stealthing these infected now. I'm not doing a bad job, I'm getting rid of them one by one. We're gradually moving towards the school. However, you're going to get to a point where you pass a bus and it immediately triggers a new spawn on you, completely alert to your presence. And it's about 6 more of these motherfuckers, all out for blood, after you've just taken out 6 or 7 in stealth. And there's nothing you can do to avoid it. There's no cheeky way of bypassing the spawn. There's no spawn kill. It's just... You're going to trip a spawn, and then everything's going to get messed up, because it's completely random what happens from that point onwards. And I hate that. I really do. And I think it ruins several parts of this game, where the spawns just kind of happen. And it makes me a sad panda, because it doesn't happen so much on the earlier difficulties. It's something that you only really notice on the harder ones. These... just different spawns. A good example is the Pittsburgh shootout, when you crash the car at the beginning of that level. So I just got spotted then, so it's time to do my running around trying not to get bit, hoping Bill shoots everything with a shotgun technique. But in Pittsburgh, if you're playing on hard, you have to take out about 5 guys, and then when you take them out, there's no second spawn, it just ends. And I think that would be a really tense and interesting fight on Ungrounded, because those first 5 guards are a really interesting situation. But on the harder difficulties, once those guys are dead, there's then a random reinforcement wave. And those reinforcements are immediately onto you, because there's corpses lying about everywhere, and it's just immediate alarm. And it just ruins that entire sequence, because previously there were checkpoints, but on Grounded they've removed all mid-fight checkpoints. Sometimes they've removed just like mid-level checkpoints. So if you're worried about playing this difficulty and you're wondering, or you're looking for somebody to try and reinforce your feelings on it, or kind of ease your mind so that you can finally accept whether or not you can do it, or you want to do it, you want to put yourself through that, all I have to do is say this one thing. The final level of the game, when you are taking down the Fireflies, does not have a checkpoint. No checkpoint, guys. It is 8 minutes of pure gameplay with no checkpoint. However, that is the end of the first part of Billstown. We haven't got to the spawn I've just been talking about, but believe me folks when I say we very shortly will do, and shit's about to hit the proverbial